Peace everyone, Unmask Art here and welcome back to the live pastel tutorial. Today we are going to be finishing off the mountain landscape that I started last week, and as you may remember I am using the 16 set of the Unison soft pastel landscape set. So you can see there on the screen over here I have the supplies listed. I'm using the pastel matte paper, and I'm only using these 16 soft pastels. That's what we've used so far to do the skies, the mountains, and some of the distant foliage. So today we're just going to be finishing this up, and let me quickly say hello to everybody in the chat. Hello Talia, Gihan, Lily, Pumpkin Spice, Osri, T Life, Pixel Diva, and Tammy Sue. So glad to see all of you. And I'm just going to jump right into this. I'm going to use this kind of orangey creamy color here to just start some base coloring for some of the rocks here. I'm going to exaggerate the color of these rocks starting off, and then I will mix in some of the other colors to get the color to match a little bit better. But I'm kind of ignoring the trees up in the foreground for right now and just going to focus on kind of blocking in where those rocky little spots are. As many of you probably know because you watch all of my live streams, which I greatly appreciate, today will be my last live stream for the month of November. I am going on a what I consider to be a well-deserved vacation, and so I will see you all next month after today's live stream. So if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, because it will be a little while before I am back in the streaming seat here. But you don't have to say goodbye to all of the family streams, because there is another one tomorrow being hosted by Chrissy from Extras Art. And if you're not already a member of the Facebook group, the Unmasked Family Facebook group, I do have the link for that in the description, and you'll see the future scheduled events for the live streams, so make sure you check those out. I'm going to be using this yellowish creamy color to go over top of these rocks, just tone down that orange a little bit, and I'll probably incorporate a bit of blue afterwards to pull out some of those orange and red colors and get more of a gray tone for my ridge and my rocks here. Oh, hello Barbara and Lindy and Joy. Good to see you guys. Thank you, Joy. Yes, I hope to have a good vacation as well. I have my family and we have a lot of things planned, and it hasn't been that long since I've seen my family, but a lot has happened since I've seen my family, and I really anticipate seeing them now and just spending some quality time with each other. Am I Bob Ross? Well, if you remove my locks and let my hair grow out, I do grow an afro, and I have posted a picture. Bob Ross, he was in the Air Force, I was in the Navy, and if you look at the picture of Bob Ross when he was in the Air Force, we have we look very similar to one another, minus my locks. His hair is a bit darker, but we do have a pretty striking similarity in the way that we look, but not quite Bob Ross. But I do appreciate the sentiment there. All right, I'm using this medium blue here to pull out some of the oranges. As you guys know, orange is the complement to blue, and when you mix the complements together you get a brownish color, and that helps control these saturated colors, kind of pull them out and neutralize them. And I'm going for a kind of a medium gray brown with these rocks here to start off, and that's why I'm mixing these colors together. It's something you have to do when you have a limited palette of colors. You have to, mix and match your colors and get the right color. Yes, I am headed to the United States. I'll be there for the remainder of November. Oops, forgot to clean my sponge here, so I got a little bit of green in there, but no big deal. I'm just going to mix those colors with my sponge brush. There we go. That looks like I got the green all out. So now you can start to see it's the blue and the orange. They're kind of turning into more of a brownish color, getting a little muddy, which is exactly what I want, because that's what I want these rocks to look like. They kind of have that muddyish gray color to them. Probably have to add a little bit more blue, I think. That's what I'll do after this. Just kind of getting a nice base color and the placement of those rocks there. All right, yeah, I'm going to add a little bit more of that blue, especially into this one that turned a bit too much green. And hopefully that will make it more grayish. Pull out some more of the red. These Unison pastels have been fantastic. They're so smooth on the paper. It's effortless to apply them to this pastel mat. They just work so well. I am definitely a big fan of them already, and I look forward to getting more of them. When I get back from my vacation, I intend to place an order, pretty large order for art supplies, a whole bunch. I'm going to get some pastels, probably get some markers, thanks to you guys and your lovely super chat donations through the month of Inktober. All right, now you can see how much more gray that is. It has a hint of blue, a hint of the orange brown color, so it looks really good. And now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this green really quick. What does this green look like? Yeah, that's the green that I want. There's a lot of green in here for the grass, the shaded part of the grass. So I'm going to kind of block in where that shaded grass is at. Just kind of scribble this color in here a little bit. Still ignoring the trees. The trees are the darker parts of everything going on here, so those will layer down over top of all of this color that I'm laying down now really, really easily. So I'm just kind of barely working around the trees and just focusing on the grass for right now. We have these long shadows from the trees coming down here. And let's see, about right here, it kind of curves down. And all of this is that green grass. Best part about pastels is you can be really loose with them starting off like this, and then just get more and more detailed with just layering, as opposed to having to work in all of that detail right away. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about pastels is you can be very loose with them, and then you can just build more and more detail continuously. All right, I'm going to add in some yellow now. And this is going to be the highlighted part of the grass. I'm going to do this very lightly starting off because there's still a lot of mixing and blending that I got to do, and I don't want this yellow to get too too overbearing in the beginning, and I don't want it to muddy up. I'm going to add a little bit of this creamier color to lighten this area. There we go. Now I'm going to start by blending the light yellow so that I don't get too much of the green in there right away. One of the things that stands out a lot that I mentioned last week about these Unison pastels, just in case you happen to miss that stream where we did the sky in the back mountains there, is that these Unison pastels are significantly softer than the Faber-Castell and the Rembrandt pastels, making it so much easier to blend them out and smooth them and cover up the entire page. It's something that really stands out immediately when you try these pastels, is just how far they spread on the paper in comparison to the slightly denser Faber-Castell and Rembrandt pastels. Oh, hello, Co, Paulo, and Virginia. Good morning, good morning. Glad to see you. Thank you for popping into the live stream. All right, now I'm going to mix out the green, blend it out. Still a lot of paper showing up, which is expected on the first very light layer. Still just kind of ignoring the trees. I'll put those in when I'm ready for those. Oh, thank you, Lily. Yeah, I really like the colors going on in this scene from the reference photo. Speaking of the reference photo, I do have the link for the reference photo and the line art, the quick, easy trace line art for this piece here. So if you want to attempt it, you can click on the link in the description and download the line art and use it as you wish. All right, I'm gonna get a little bit bluer with the grass here. I'm gonna go a shade darker with the green grass. Sprinkle in a little bit of shadow there. Oh, hello, Renee. There's a whole bunch of textures and everything going on in this grass, but you don't really have to focus too much on them as far as this stage of the color filling in. Essentially what you want to start off by doing is filling in the large shapes of color. We have some darker green shadows down here, for instance. Filling in those larger shapes will allow you to not only complete the drawing faster, but it will also just make the process simpler in terms of completion. So you don't have to feel like you have to focus on this one tree right here and try to get all of that detail in there and then move on to the next tree. That's one of the wonderful things about the pastels, is since they're such a forgiving medium, you can kind of just scribble in a bit of the detail and then move on, and then do a little bit of blending, add more layers, get more detail, and then so forth. All right, I'm going to try to add a bit more yellow down here. This yellow needs to be slightly creamier, so I'm going to try to add more of this, maybe even a little bit of white. See if I can brighten it up in a few spots. Hopefully when I blend it out, I'll get more of a yellowish color. this is where, you know, the limitation of color is going to affect the final outcome. I'm going to try to blend that out and see what that yellow looks like with added white, because I want to get it nice and bright, but I don't quite have that yellow that I'm looking for. Yeah, the white is probably going to be the best option. So mixing this color in the white gets you just about where you want to be with the bright spots of the grass. All right, I'm going to blend out the green again. Oh, hello, Stephanie. Yeah, it has been a little while since you caught a stream. Glad to see you. Everything will start to really come together once we cover up all of the paper. Then you'll start to see the scene really coming to life. And then we can focus on things like the light, the contrast of all these colors, and then we can put in these trees here. I kind of want to save putting in the trees in the foreground to one of the last steps, because I'm still doing a lot of blending, and I want the trees to have a nice crisp detail to them. So I don't really want to be feathering the edges or doing any blending once I add the trees. I want them to have, like, you know, the sharper, cleaner edges and detail to them. That way they look like they're closer to the foreground, because they are indeed closer to the foreground there. Oh, hey Cece, good to see you. And I'll be seeing you very soon, can't wait. Oh, hello Diana. Yes, I'm very glad to see you in the live chat as well. Ankush, hello. And Shiny. Alright. Going to no, I don't want to add too much highlights to the rocks yet. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on getting this grass here the right tone. I'm going to add a little bit of this bluish green. Piece broke off. Add a little bit of this bluish green here to darken some very select areas of the grass. So I'm going to be a little bit delicate here. Start adding in bit of the correct contrast. These are this is like the color of some of the bushes and some of the foliage down at the bottom of the trees, so there's not a whole lot of this color coming in. This is the color that I'll basically be utilizing for most of the trees, but there's a lot of little foliage pieces that show up here that I want to make sure that I get this contrast. I'm going to switch back to this green now. this layer will help me cover up the rest of the paper in this grassy region. Oh, hello, Diane. You're not too late to the party, but better late than never. Glad you're liking the outcome so far. I am indeed liking it as well. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I never get enough questions. And I love answering them, so please just have at the questions all you want. I am an open book. I have no secrets. Well, maybe a few, but none that pertain to my artwork, so it's all good there. All right, I think that is good. I'm going to do a bit of blending now. I don't want to do too much blending because I want texture to start showing through in the grass and the foreground and everything. Back here I'm not too concerned about that much texture. That can be a bit smoother, but up here I'm just going to kind of like brush it gently and let some of the graininess and some of the texture just show through, because that pastel grain really adds a nice grassy texture to this middle foreground. Like up here in the bushes and things like that, all those little grains kind of create like a leaf texture and just all kinds of fun little interesting bits to the drawing overall. There we go. Now we have lots of texture going on there. I'm going to focus in on this yellow grass part now. And I'm going to start off with the creamy color, and I'm going to try to get the shape that I want for the bright grass. I'm going to be real bold with it as well. I'm not going to shy away from the fact that the contrast between these two colors is very striking, and that's exactly what we want, because this is a long cast shadow being cast from the trees, right? Probably should add a little bit of blue into it as well, but that's what we're trying to create here. It's the sensation of a shadow. And we'll have a bunch of texture going on in this grass here, so don't worry about that too soon. We'll get to that stage. There we go. Now I'm going to incorporate some more of this yellow in there. Try to brighten up, resaturate some of the grass. Again, we don't have the exact color, so we just kind of have to mix and hope for the best a little bit. When do I go on holiday? I go on holiday actually technically tonight. I'll be staying up for the remainder of my Tuesday. My wife and I, we have to leave like super early in the morning, so I don't think we're going to go to sleep. Probably just end up staying up, and that will help us sleep on the plane a little bit. We will be flying from here over to Germany, and then from Germany to Canada, and then Canada to the United States. And I'm not a fan of the long flight across the Atlantic. It is certainly my least favorite activity. So I'm hoping that it goes quite well. And fortunately, we get into the States in the late afternoon. So I'm hoping that because of the time difference, we don't struggle too much with our sleeping pattern. And I'm hoping that staying up all night also lends itself to letting us sleep when we should be asleep or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's too confusing. The time differences and all that stuff drive me nuts. This medium has to be my favorite one to watch you do. Next to your eyes, your colored pencil, your color with colored pencil. Yeah, I really like working with pastels because they allow me to be a lot looser with my art. Usually I'm very, particular, and I'm prone to like really getting in there with the details, and things take a lot longer when I do that. But with the soft pastels, they are a lot of fun to use, and I hope that you guys all enjoy watching me play with them. I'm using this brighter orange. I'm hoping to pull out a little bit more saturation and color diversity in some of the spots up here. I'm going to do a little bit of blending as well. How important is a really good reference photo or photo editing software? I tend to draw a picture more because it makes me feel something when I see it. That's what I tend to do as well. I tend to be drawn towards photos that I find appealing to look at, and I kind of obsess with my reference photos. I like to have really, really good reference photos. And so I don't settle for anything that's low quality. Now, as far as having a good software that lets you edit photos, it's not the most important thing in the world. It is a great tool, and I highly, highly recommend it to anybody that is an artist, because knowing Photoshop means that you have to know how colors interact with one another. And when you get into editing photos, you get into color compositions, you get into composition, and editing that stuff helps you with that mindset of photo manipulation and kind of evaluating your colors and identifying specific colors to help pull out details, or working with contrast and all of the things that you usually worry about when you're actually in the creating process. And it lets you do it digitally, meaning it's 100% forgivable. You can always correct it and change it and alter it. And one of the things that I do with Photoshop, I use Photoshop because it's the best program for that kind of stuff, is I actually plan out my entire projects before ever touching anything to paper. And it's a shortcut. It allows me to make sure that I'm not making mistakes on my paper, and it allows me to see a very clear goal. I'm able to identify my color palette. I am able to just compose it onto the exact size of paper that I'm working on. So, if I'm working on an odd shaped paper and I want to, compose my image really, really well, then I can, manipulate it in Photoshop first and see how I want to line it up and all of that, instead of, trial and error on my paper. So it's a skill that I definitely recommend picking up. Photoshop is much more reasonable in terms of affordability now than it ever was, because now you have a yearly subscription, and I think it's like maybe $90 a year or something like that. $90 a year, that's not that bad. You know, you're probably spending about that same price on, say, like Netflix or something like that. I don't have Netflix. I don't know how much it costs, but it's probably around that price, maybe like $10 a month or something. And it continuously updates. You'll never have to buy a new version, because Photoshop used to be like $500, $600, $700 for the program, and then they'd change it and then you have to buy it all over again. But now it's just a subscription thing, and you just use it for as long as you need to use it for. Turn off your subscription whenever you want, and you get all the benefits. All right, I'm going to add some dark brown, this color here, into my rocks, my rocky areas here. Because obviously with all this grass and trees and everything, there's got to be some dirt. So I'm going to just start playing around with some of the texture and the details. I'm done with the foundational stage. So I have the grass like established. I have the shadow and the highlight established. Now I can go in and start adding in the textures and the details and get everything looking the way that I think it should look. We got this little cliff here with some texture. And you can basically do this minimally, where you don't have a lot of that texture and the detail, and you can keep your drawing or your painting a little bit more loose and focus more on just the contrast and the color. That's one way to do it. Or you can do this for days and days and days until you have the most realistic possible landscape that you've ever created. What do you think about having an episode where you choose a reference photo that fans have taken? Well, I mean, over on Patreon, I am doing a puppy portrait tutorial that is a patron's photograph. They sent it to me because I'm always asking for requests. So whatever you guys want to see, this mountain landscape was suggested, and to do it with just these pastels, nothing else, just these pastels and a mountain landscape. That's what I was requested to do, and as you can see, I'm doing just that. So I get a lot of requests for subjects and everything in between. So just about every episode consists of something of that sort. But if you guys have reference photos that you'd love to see me recreate with pastels or colored pencils or whatever, I don't turn down requests. I accept them as often as I can, and I do them when I'm capable of doing them. When I have only the amount of time that I am allotted in my life, I can only do so many. So I obviously I can't do all of them, but I try to do as many as I can. You love the picture that I'm doing now. I'm glad that you like it. I'm happy that I picked a good one. Oh, hello, Jelena. Good to see you. Yeah, if you guys have a reference photo that you like and you would like to see me recreate, you can either email it to me or you can message me on Facebook. Obviously, now I'm not going to be too responsive after today since I will be leaving, but I will certainly get back to you when I return, and hopefully I will be able to do that. These live pastel tutorials will be happening every Tuesday once I do return. That's the plan, to have these tutorials every Tuesday. And the drawing journal that I did yesterday, that will always be on Monday. And then we have Chrissy over at Express Art. She streams on Wednesdays. She's a family streamer as well. And speaking of which, if anybody else is a YouTube artist and you stream and you can keep on a schedule, you can be a family streamer too, where you get to post your schedule in the Unmask family Facebook group and set up weekly events to invite the family over to hang out and watch your stream. So if that is something that one of you are capable of doing and is interested in, that is always available to those of you that are fellow artists. Using this cream color to bring in some of the highlights from the rocks now. Still avoiding any of the actual trees, because like I said, those are like the dark objects that I really want to keep crisp. What's the best advice you could give somebody for marketing, promoting their art? That is a good question. I don't do a lot of self promotion. I've kind of did it all the hard way by just consistency and uploading my videos on my channel. When it comes to promoting your work, sometimes the best thing to do is to just keep creating and posting it online. A lot of people have come to my channel simply by searching for particular topics or tutorials or something like that, and that's how they've come across my artwork. One of the other things that you have to keep in mind is, what are you trying to do with your artwork? Because for me, I focus on teaching. That's what I do. I'm good at teaching. I like to think that I'm also good at creating artwork, but what I don't focus on is, I don't focus on selling my originals. I don't focus on taking on clients and doing commissions or anything like that. In the beginning, I was a little bit scattered. I was like taking on a few commissions. I was making tutorials on YouTube. I was setting up a Patreon page and trying to figure out, what was best, what worked best for me. And eventually, I noticed that, I was focusing more and more on making videos, making tutorials, and teaching, and I was having to take on less and less commissions in order to keep up with all of that stuff. So my best advice would be to figure out first what you want to do with your artwork. Are you an artist that wants to create pieces for clients? Because you have to know that, working with clients can be a bit of a headache, and you can run into some pretty bad clients sometimes. And, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to focus on something other than, what other people want you to create. So that would be my best advice. Before you get into marketing and promoting, know what you want to do with your art. Do I have a tutorial on creating clouds? Well, technically last week, I showed you how to create this sky. I find skies to be remarkably easy, and it just takes a little bit of practice. The most important thing is to get your colors nice and soft and blended out. That's going to be the most important thing with the sky. Before I talk any more, I'm going to add a little bit of blue, this dark blue, into the grass, and then I'll describe some more with the sky. So yeah, that's going to be the most important thing with the sky, is just getting the colors blended out nice and soft and smooth. And then adding the clouds is as simple as just putting some white puffs in certain locations and then blending it out, and then adding layers of the white in order to get the white to be brighter. But you could always refer to last week's live stream on how I created these clouds. And then, of course, I do have an intro to pastel course that I go over 5 different skies, including ones with more dynamic clouds and more complicated skies. There's 5 projects, and I know that a lot of you probably even have the intro to pastel course and probably really enjoyed it. So anybody in the live chat that has gone through my intro to pastel course could probably answer all of your questions regarding the course. Have I done a winter scene? Have I done a winter scene? I don't think that I have. I don't think that I have done a winter scene. That is a very good observation, Anna. You've been around my channel long enough to know better than I if I've done a winter scene. And I'm pretty sure I haven't. I have done a winter scene with colored pencils because it was a tutorial request. I did that a couple years ago, actually. I have it hanging up behind me, but you can't quite see it. So that winter scene would be really, really good idea. I think I'm going to have to put that on the list for when I come back to do a nice winter scene. Because snow is one of those subjects, regardless of the medium, that I think people struggle with, because it has a unique property. It's almost like water in the sense that it reflects a lot of the surrounding, and it can appear to be any color, and it's almost never white. Oh, hello, Leontine. Good to see you. There's a lot of slopes. Where's the horizon line? Well, technically, the horizon line is any spot that meets the sky. So my horizon line is essentially the top of the mountains here. Because of the way that this scene comes together, there's not really an exact horizon line. Like, usually you associate a horizon line with being flat, but that's not necessarily the case, because the horizon line is where the land meets the sky in the most general sense. Of course, you could argue that if I was doing like a plain, just flat ground, and you had like trees in the background, and then you have mountains, you could kind of argue that, where the mountains hit the ground and that straight line across would be the horizon line. But I think the best general definition of the horizon line is just where the sky meets the earth, and that happens to be the top of the mountains. So the horizon line is technically 1/3. if you're familiar with the golden rule. Oh, Barbara, you're right. The Fox tutorial did have snow, but it was that would be kind of cheating to say that it's a snow landscape though. One of the techniques that I'm using now is I'm utilizing the shape of these pastels, and they have this cylindrical shape, which I'm not a huge fan of. I prefer the rectangular prism shapes because I like the sharp edge. But to get some of the subtle details and texture in the grass, I'm using it and I'm just rolling it across the paper, and it's creating some nice thin lines and some unique little bits of texture. So that's kind of the technique that I'm trying out. I don't use these cylindrical shaped pastels too often, so I have to invent new techniques to get the look that I want. But it's going to be really important that I maximize the texture up here. This is where I want all of the texture to really start to show up, because that's going to be the foreground that kind of captures the eye a little bit. So I'm more concerned with the details here than I am right here. And as you can see, I still left all the trees blank because I have still quite a bit of work to do with this landscape. Yeah, I will definitely do a summer, or not a summer, a winter snowy landscape. I will look at some reference pictures. Or if you guys have reference pictures of wherever it is that you live, nice captivating snowy landscape scenery, I'd be happy to recreate that scene if I find the reference photo compelling enough. I like that idea. There's also a little bit of brown and dirt coming through the grass here that I'll probably incorporate with like one of these two colors. Oh, hello, Bonnie. Maybe a bit odd to ask, but have I done any scary monster artworks? Have I? Certainly not recently. Not probably not in the past 10 years. I can't really remember if I've done any at all in my lifetime. I've never been much of a horror movie fan, so doing like the movie monsters and things like that has never really been on my radar of subjects. And also, I don't tend to do like fan art stuff too often. I've done some fan art stuff in the past, but I tend not to do too much fan art stuff. Probably because I don't have. Well, to be honest with you, my feelings about fan art, that especially when it refers to like people, is that I think famous people probably get enough tension as is, and I just don't think that they deserve free artwork done about them, or they get enough already, and I don't want to add to it. So I tend not to, because one of the other things, like, I don't really like to piggyback on the success of other people. So if I do something related to a famous person and I post it on YouTube, I feel like I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I like to do just my own thing, and if, I'm not trying to get famous anyway, but, if I get attention for it, I feel like I deserve that attention as opposed to if I did fan art. Don't mean to get like political or anything, artistically political, but it's just kind of how I feel about the fan art stuff. Alright, I'm going to do a little bit of blending. Very, very soft with my brush. I'm barely even letting it touch the paper, and I'm just kind of like dusting it off, essentially. And as you can see, the texture still stays there because I'm so delicate with the brush. I'm going to go over the grass now. Yeah, I am going to be taking my camera with me, so when I do go to Snowshoe, I might myself be able to capture a nice snowy landscape scene. Alright, those details are quite a bit softer. I think it's safe to bring in the trees now. Yeah, so I'm gonna grab, I think I'm gonna start with this as the base color, the darkest green that comes in the set, because it's this dark green right here that's showing up a little bit. So I'm gonna try to make the smallest detail that I can with this giant block of pastel. Just using the edges here. It's hard to get like thin lines at all. I'll have to eventually go a little bit darker with the color. This is the color that I just want to use to block in a few of the shapes. Best part is you don't have to be too exact. Trees have a lot of leniency to them. My main goal is to just cover up the rest of the paper here. Do I find each picture you create easy when it comes to choosing the correct colors? When I copy a reference, if I find it hard to find the colors. So this comes back to the question regarding like Photoshop and using Photoshop. That's the one thing that I probably utilize Photoshop the most for in my artwork, is establishing my color chart. It's something that I think you should do in all of your artwork, is start off by establishing your color palette. Also, you guys know that I have, let me just show you. So I have all of my color charts here, as you can see. That is something that I do with all of my mediums, because selecting the right color is paramount to getting the final result that you want. Whether it's realistic or not, is irrelevant. Getting the right colors is the most important part of your creation. And if you get the wrong colors, you're never going to get the results that you want. So I use Photoshop a lot to either identify the exact color by isolation, or I use it to establish the base color palette that I'm going to be using throughout the artwork. And then I just take those colors, I look at my color charts, I match them to the best of my ability, which tends to be rather good, and then I use them. I use them exactly where they show up. And this is what's brought me to the techniques that I teach throughout, colored pencils and all my other mediums that I use. And one of the new techniques that I've been talking about a lot, and I even talked about it quite a bit yesterday while I was working on that semi-portrait in pastels on the drawing journal, is focusing, ignoring what you're doing. Like I'm not even in the mindset like, oh, I'm doing a mountain landscape. Instead, I'm focusing on these triangular line type shapes, and the only thing that I'm focused on is making sure that my color and value is correct, and the shape itself. I want the shape to match, and I want the color and value to match as well. Sometimes we overcomplicate things that don't need to be overcomplicated, and I think that the color chart stuff can be simplified, and I feel like I have simplified it as easy as I can make it for myself, and I pass that information on as much as I can to make it easy for everybody else as well, because I don't think it needs to be that hard. All right, let's do a few little trees popping up in there. All right, I'm going to do the tiniest amount of blending just to make sure that I have the white part of the paper covered. So I'm going to just do a small amount of blending with the side edge of the brush here so I don't lose the shape of the tree too much. I'm going to add more color anyway, so the trees need some highlights and they need some shadows. So the shape is still being built a little bit. Oh goodness, I just realized that I'm going to be finishing this today, 100% going to be finishing this, and I can't wait to peel off the side. That's my favorite part. I love peeling off the tape. Good morning, Tatiana. Oh, you know what? Seeing you in the chat, Tatiana, just reminded me that everybody that won the coloring competition that ended last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. Oh, it is, yeah, 2 weeks ago. I just got back from the post office and I sent all of those out, so you'll be receiving your prizes soon. I'm going to be using this dark brown color now. It's kind of like black. I honestly can't tell what color it is. It looks kind of like black, but I think it's dark brown. And I'm just going to continue to add a bit of shadow and depth into my trees here. Alright. I can scribble a little bit of extra texture with this color also. Alright, now I'm going to use the medium yellow for the highlights on the tree. And I'm not going to do too much of this. Maybe I should do it this way. Horizontally makes a little bit more sense. I can't really even see where the pastel is touching. Little dots. I'm just going to do it on the tall trees. And if it gets too bright, I'll just tap it with my finger a little bit. There, now the trees have just a hint of a highlight. Do this little grassy patch down here. That is 18 color set. 16. I don't know if they have an 18 color set. No, this is just 16. I put tape on a normal piece of art paper and it pulled up a bit of the paper when I took it off. That can happen. Make sure that you're using painter's tape that is low tack. If you're using it on normal paper, even then, it will peel off if you pull the tape off the wrong way. When I get to the fun part of pulling off the tape, I'll show you how to do it so that you don't have that problem, or you at least minimize the problem significantly. I'm using this cream color here to add in a few more stones and texture into this part of the grass. Some of those loose stone bits. And then I'm going to grab my craft knife and I'm going to take the medium green, this green here, and I'm going to scrape off a bit of it and get some of the dust to create some grassy-like texture here. Just gently scraping off some of it. This will give me a whole bunch of awesome texture. This is one of my all-time favorite pastel techniques. I've showed you guys this technique plenty of times before. I don't have a piece of glassine paper just offhand, but I'll have to grab one to finish this off, but I'm just going to start with this color. I'm going to use the medium yellow now to build some texture in the grass, the shadowed part of the grass. This will really help that foreground have that extra bit of impossibly created texture and detail, because you can't draw specks this small with the pastels. So when you add this little layer of dust texture and then you flatten it out using glassine paper, it adds that bit of detail to the foreground that captures the viewer's attention. Let's see, I'm going to go with the real light green, the lightest green here, and see what this looks like. You can just experiment with all the colors because the spots are so small. Sometimes you just have to, play around with which colors you scrape onto your paper because they show up a little bit different than if you were to actually apply them normally. I want a little bit of grassy texture here, which is more of a vertical shape. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to try this. I've never tried this before, but now that I have the dust laid down, I'm going to take my sponge brush. Hopefully it's clean. Yeah, it's relatively clean. And I'm going to go vertically with it and see if it creates kind of a grassy texture by scraping that dust up vertically a little bit. I'm just barely touching it at all. Just trying to create a tiny, tiny bit of grass-like texture. Those little dust particles are creating just really small lines that I wouldn't be able to color in. Not with these pastels anyway. I'd have to grab pencils or something. But I'm holding true to my word by only using these exact 16 colors, not grabbing any pencils or anything like that. But as you can see, it's starting to create a little bit of a grassy texture, which is exactly what I wanted. Lily, actually, you're not receiving a print. You won the competition. You're receiving my original drawing. So just so you're getting the real drawing, not the print. I sent that out as well, so that will be on its way very soon. Oh, hello, Steve. You're a tiny bit late, but no worries there. I'm actually going to be finishing off this drawing here a little bit, in just a little bit. I think I'm pretty close to being satisfied with the way that it looks. I'm going to try the light cream color here and see if I can draw a few bits of grass. I'm trying to barely touch the paper because that edge is going to give me the thinnest possible lines. So just going through and adding a few indications of grass. You don't have to actually do too much of this because of the amount of texture that we've laid down so far. Just seeing some of it pop up, like right here, is going to convince your eye that the rest of it is grass. And that's my plan here. My plan is to just convince your eye that you're looking at a mountain scenery. Add a few highlights back here. I'm going to grab this green. I'm going to do some more highlighting on the trees, I think. Because they just, I'm going to try to add some of this dust onto the trees. I'm going to get really close here and see if I can't. Because the trees are just lacking a little bit in texture. So I think if I add a tiny bit of dust, it will help them have a bit more character. Yeah, that works. And this color is not quite bright enough to make it look highlighted, but it's just bright enough to make it look textured. There. All right. So my hands are a complete mess. But I need to grab some glassine paper. To get that dust to stick, you just need to lay down a sheet of glassine paper and quickly just rub your hand across it. You don't have to press really hard or anything like that because it's still just pastel. So you don't have to press any harder than what you would normally press when you're using the normal pastel. So I'm just gently rubbing my fingers across it to press those colors into the paper. And that is literally all that it takes. I'm going to try to clean off my fingers a little bit. I'm just going to take a moment to appreciate the work, see if there's anything else that I might want to add. Before I pull off the tape. Oh, Cece, you always want my pastel work. I think I'm satisfied with this. What do you guys think? Do you guys like it? I'm gonna pull off the tape now. It's time for everybody's favorite part. All right, I'm gonna start over here. Okay, so back to your concern about pulling tape off of paper. So paper is pressed, right? And the sides, they have gap because there's multiple sheets of material being pressed into one. So you never want to pull the tape towards the paper. So if you see up here towards the corner, I'm gonna grab this and you always want to pull away from the paper. So I want to pull this tape off the edge that direction. So that's how you want to pull tape off to avoid ruining it. You always want to pull it off away from the edge. Because if you pull it towards the edge, you have the possibility, even with low tack paper like I'm using, there's the potential of the paper ripping because you're spreading the layers of the paper apart. And you can see the way that I'm pulling it. I'm not trying to like rip it off in a hurry, but I'm kind of working it slowly. That's another way of pulling off the tape so that it doesn't ruin the paper. Don't try to do it all at once. Try to just do it slowly and let it peel off. The path of least resistance. That is what you're looking for with the tape. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of patience and delicacy to get the tape off without damaging the paper. Alright, last piece of tape. My table is at a slant, so it's gonna fall down. So I gotta kind of hold it, and my fingers are a little dirty, so I don't wanna get the white part of the paper dirty with dirty pastel fingers. And there we have it. Zoom out a little bit. So there's the mountain landscape using only the 16 set of the Unison Pastels. This exact set right here. This is the landscape half stick set. And I am super pleased with the way that it came out. This set of pastels has been super fun to use, and I'll definitely be ordering some more Unison pastels in the future, and definitely a much larger set to see what I can make with them. It was a lot of fun. I hope that you guys enjoyed this live pastel tutorial, this and last week's to finish this piece. I hope that you learned a lot for pastels. I know many of you might be new to pastels, or maybe you're experienced with them. Either way, I hope that you guys learned something. If you did like the live stream, be sure to give it a thumbs up so that I know. And that is going to be it for today's stream. If you guys have any requests, remember you can always email me. You can always message me on Facebook, or you can tweet at me on Twitter. I have all of my social media and contacts in the description below. Other than that, this is it for November. So I'll see you guys in December, and I'll be back with another pastel tutorial and some more drawing journals and who knows what else. So hope you guys have a fantastic rest of November, and I'll see you all next time. Take care. Peace.